You remember the movie My Cousin Vinny? Any of you ever seen that movie, My Cousin Vinny? Cousin Vinny he's get a call. He's sent down. His cousins are in need. He has to bring a voice. He has to bring a word to them. My cousin Vinny comes and saves the day because of the word he brings. Now, as a matter of fact, I have a cousin, and his name is John, just like the story we're reading about this morning. My cousin John, as a matter of fact, I lost him now. He was right. Oh, there he is. He's right below me on my screen. He's the blob right behind Janine. Well, this story ain't about him. It's about a different one. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light so that all might believe through him. Sent from God as a witness so that all might believe. His role, his mission, his purpose, clearly defined, laid out right before him. The message of John, even though spoken harshly at times, is a message of hope, a message of promise fulfilled. Any of you that are in and around Ferndale know that before the pandemic and all the restrictions and all the restaurants and bars and the few stores that make up Ferndale, finding a parking spot was almost impossible. People complained, people cried out, people wanted resolution, people wanted a solution, and so one was offered. There would be a parking structure. There would be a parking structure coming to meet the needs of the people. It was drawn, people saw it, there were meetings, there were promises. Now, if you drive down Allen or Woodward by Troy, you will see it's there. It's lit up brilliantly. It has Christmas trees, it has wreaths, it has all kinds of drapings, it has huge blown up figures all around it. The parking structure is there, but it's not open. It's here, but not yet. This morning on the news, Jim mentioned it earlier, the vaccine. They talked about the vaccine, the miracle. It's here. They loaded the trucks. It's here. We've turned the corner. It's here. How many of you have had a shot? It's here, but not yet. The promise still awaits. They even said it'll be a year, Alan, before you get the shot. It's here, but not yet. I drive by Zion. Great big sign hanging from the windows. Love one another. Beautifully done. Nativity scene out front. Wreaths on the doors. All of the lights on the bushes and the trees. The outside of Zion looks great for Christmas, for the season, but it's empty. We're online. We're here. We're looking at one another. We hear the gospel pray. We pray. We banter back and forth, but we don't have the bread and the wine. We don't have the closeness, the fellowship, the touching. We don't have the intimacy of that. It's there and it's coming, but not yet. We live with the promise. For John's day, John's message was not enough. The people wanted more. They wanted more than just the promise, the word of hope. They wanted more than just reminders of God's promise and God's gift. They wanted more. John says, among you stands one whom you do not know. God has already responded to the people's needs, but they don't know it. Not yet. Not yet, anyway. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you saying? Instead of answering them, John quotes the prophet. John quotes the prophet, I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. Make straight the way of the Lord. The message of Advent, the message of hope is proclaimed in the wilderness of life's journey. The wilderness where these people find themselves. People who once knew and saw the promise and love and faithfulness of God, who once were part and touched by that blessing and that presence, but somehow have lost sight. But they're good at this. You remember, these are the people who were in slavery and they begged to be released. They begged to get out. And God provided a leader, Moses, and he takes them out. And they get out and they get thirsty. And what is the first thing they say? Oh, you know what? When we were back in Egypt, we had water. Remember? Remember how it used to be? Remember the good old days? They went further and got hungry. Oh, remember when we were back in Egypt, we had food. Remember how it used to be, the good old days? Remember the normal, how we used to have it? Moses goes up on the mountain, says, be patient, I'll be back. Can't wait. Got to make a golden calf. They'd rather wander in darkness, grasping at anything. They clamored. They kept pointing out the chaos, the fear, the problems that confronted them. Hope was replaced with a longing for yesterday, with a desire to have it the way it once was. And here comes John. Hope does not change life's circumstances. Hope changes us. Having and maintaining hope in life's journey is not easy. Somehow God's people forgot. The world demanded answers. They wanted answers, and instead, they were directed right back to God and his promise. Advent is all about the promise. Advent is all about God's faithful response. Advent is all about the voice in the wilderness. Okay. That's an old story. But how does it really affect us in our journey? How can we, with all that's going on, not be afraid? All the unrest, all the bitterness, all the violence, all of the seemingly hopeless divisions, and add to that this lousy virus. We've had enough. The cry goes out. I got to get out of the house. I'm tired of being confined. I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to every day. I want restrictions lifted. I want what I want, and I want it now. I've had enough of this. And along comes John to say, oh, really? Oh, really? The answer, folks, John says it's already here. You already have what you need. Now, any parent who has taken his or her family on a long trip, Stephanie, you pay attention because you're going to say yes. Doesn't matter, whatever the generation, there's a voice from the back seat that will say, are we there yet? And any smart driver, instead of entering into that discussion, will simply say, almost there. Hang on, just a little longer. We'll get there. Where is that voice crying out to us? Who is sent by God into the darkness that surrounds us to say to us, be patient. God has heard and will respond. Where is the voice that speaks to us? There's a commercial on television for those of you who deign to leave your handheld devices and look at television. There's a commercial which I don't even remember the product, but it's a man who's going to teach young adults how to not be like their parents. And one segment, he's standing with two of his students in like a Home Depot, and a young man with bright blue hair walks by. And the two who are being trained begin to shake. They got to say something. They've got to respond. And the man who's teaching them says, we all see it. We all see it. Be patient. We all see it. And they can't. And one guy goes, blue hair, blue hair. And the teacher says, okay, okay. Where is the voice that says to us when we cry out, okay, okay, it'll be all right. God has heard and will respond. Well, we have Pastor Bodie, who's been preaching a voice of hope since he got here. We have the bishop, who has preached at Zion and walked down the aisle with that funny hat and preached hope. Now, both of them mumble, so you may have had trouble understanding it, but that's not enough. Where is the power of the message? And right here is where the rubber meets the road. Advent is also a call to us. It is a call to us. For like John, we too are sent from God. Remember your baptism? Remember your confirmation? Remember the call that has brought you to this point? We too have to call out in the darkness. We too have to cry out. It's not about circumstances. It's not about worldly conditions. It's not about political unrest. It's not about buildings. We want Christmas. We want Christmas. I want to be back there with the poinsettias. I want Roger and Elin to get the orchestra together. Of course, it's got to have the timpani. I want the cantata. I want the kids program back there. I want what I want. And God says, look what you already have. Look what you already have. You cling to the promise. You cling to the promise in this journey. How come you didn't like what I had to do? You shut me off.
I'm sorry. It was
fine.
Jumped
That's
around
fine.
in the thing. I'm sorry.
Don Schneider used to do that, sit in the front pew and look at his watch when it seemed to be too long. If this, Bodie puts you up to that, I can see right now.
I'm not giving away anything.
Yeah, I can tell. I was watching videos called The Band of Brothers. It's about a group of men, true story, in Second World War. And as they were training, they had to climb a mountain, and the name of the mountain was Currahee. And that became their cry. We stand, it's a Native American word. It means stand alone together. We stand alone together. And that may be truer now than ever. We can't keep the message to ourselves. We have a powerful witness to make. And yet, I have coffee with a group of men every morning, very early. And every time as we're beginning to break up, we say the same thing. Tomorrow, we are not going to get into political issues and discussions. We are not going to get into worldly conditions. We are not going to talk about what's going on and end up saying the same old thing. Oh, well, it'll be what it'll be. We're not going to do that tomorrow. And we come together the next day and get sucked right in and talk about the same crap that is all around us instead of sharing the gift we have, the mere fact that we can gather together and share in this fellowship, the mere fact that we can talk about something positive, that God has given us this gift, but somehow we don't. I spend a lot of time driving to Ann Arbor every morning for treatment. And so I spend a lot of time listening to that old fashioned device called the radio. And satellite radio has a lot of channels. And I ran across one with nothing but comedians, one comedian after another. Some of them are pretty funny, some of them are pretty raunchy. But the other morning, there was a comedian who's an avowed atheist. And of course, the theme of his comedy routine is the church, people of faith. And in his monologue, he stopped and he asked a question asked to the Christians who were at that time in his audience. And the question was simply this: at this time of year, for all you Christian folks who put out signs of peace and goodwill and love, who share a message of hope and of joy, if you lived that message every day of your life, would it make the world a different place? And I thought to myself, that is a valid question. That is something that God's people should ask themselves this Advent as they await the coming. Can we make a difference in the darkness? You have the promise. You have the hope. You have the word. And yet, now you can mute me.